All right, folks, I think we're going to just try and get started. Thank you for attending today's coffee hour. My name is Torin Radiccioni from Sustainable CT, and I will let my other Sustainable CT guest host introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Inez Ortiz, and I'm a program assistant, and I also help manage the Community Match Fund with Sustainable CT.
While we have the floor, would any Sustainable CT member like to take themselves off mute and introduce themselves while we have the interest of the team on board?
Everybody, I'm Dorothy. I'm also a program assistant and help run the Community Match Fund as well.
Morning, everyone. Lynn Stoddard, Executive Director of Sustainable CT. Great to see some familiar faces and welcome.
Good morning, all. My name is Jessica LeClaire. I'm Senior Program Director with Sustainable CT, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Sustainable CT team members. I appreciate you guys attending today, and now you get to meet the team a little bit, folks. Today's webinar is going to be about strategic materials management and introducing ways and methods that municipalities can understand recycling contamination and reduce contamination in the municipal waste stream. And we'll also be hearing from a few community match fund leaders. Our special guest is going to be Marc Morgan, who is who's a strategic accounts manager for municipal services at Casella Waste. I think he should be joining us shortly. And Inez, I think you might want to briefly introduce our community match fund guests as well.
Yeah, so today we're going to hear from two Community Match Fund project leaders to talk about their food waste diversion projects. And if you're wondering, what is the Community Match Fund? The Community Match Fund is a crowdfunding campaign that we have at Sustainable CT to help support community-led projects by matching them dollar to dollar. So today we're going to hear from Anna Kristen from Suffield and Deb from New Haven, and they are fantastic project leaders that have done awesome food waste diversion projects today. And these projects were, These projects were made possible through the Food Waste Amplifier Fund that we have that has been generously funded through the Hampshire Foundation. And if you would like to talk about a community match fund project at any time, please feel free to shoot us an email and I will drop that in the chat. So I'm going to pass it back over to Torin to talk about some more sustainable CT related things.
Yeah, I just have a few special updates. I just want to let you guys know that this webinar will be recorded so that you guys can view it at your viewing time, and especially the people that could not make it here today. That will be available on the Sustainable CT YouTube page. If you go to youtube.com and just search for Sustainable CT in the search bar, you should be able to find us. Better yet, the best way to get in contact with us and stay up to date with the latest and greatest Sustainable CT news is signing up for Actions and Impact, which is the Sustainable CT newsletter. If you go to our home webpage, which is sustainableCT.org, you should see a link at the very, very bottom if you scroll all the way down that says sign up for our newsletter. And on top of that, we just actually released a new episode of The Impact, which is our Sustainable CT podcast. This month's episode is exploring the benefits and the depths of the Sustainable CT Fellowship Program. We have a few fellows and a few councils of government directors who have assisted in managing the fellows in a couple of years, actually provide their insights and their benefits from participating. I think that's all I have for my updates today. I think we're actually going to now kick it to our special guests. As we are waiting for Marc's arrival, Inez, I think this might be a prime opportunity for your guests to start.
Yes, Anna Kristen and some other people on her team from USA Recycling will be going first to talk about their Suffield food waste diversion project that successfully crowdfunded. And they actually just had a kickoff event for their composting program that I don't want to talk too much about because that's what they're going to talk about. So I'm going to hand it over to Anna Kristen and her team.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. I think Torin's going to share his screen. We have a few slides that we put together just to keep the conversation going. And Torin, those are not our slides.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay, no worries. I think the link is at the very top of the chat if you need it.
It is. Sorry, wrong ones.
No, that's okay.
There we go.
So basically, in the initial planning stages of our food waste diversion initiative, we sought feedback from residents. So we sent out through the listserv that the town has a survey and just asked how many people are already composting at home, how many people might be interested in a dumpster to drop off their organic waste, how far they would be willing to drive if that was an option. We also got a lot of interest in curbside composting through that survey, which is where residents would just put out their organic waste separately from the trash, but at their home at the curb for pickup. And then we kind of looked at the survey results and considered budget and feasibility for each option. And that's kind of how we came up with what we were looking to do with this project. And in that process, we consulted with various companies, one of which was USA Recycling, who they've been a great partner. If you just click over to the next slide, it outlines kind of what our project ended up being. So we kind of decided to try to do two things at once. We did some at-home compost bins that we distributed to residents. So that was a bulk of our funds that we raised, 200 bins that are actually just in the process of being distributed. And we had a ton of interest in the town. We already have a wait list going and it only went live a couple days ago. Those are being distributed next week. And then on the other, in the right column, you'll see we also did an initiative at the elementary school to fund a dumpster that USA Recycling is going to be picking up weekly so that the students and kitchen staff can divert food scraps at the school. If you click over to the next slide. So this is kind of what our landing page looked like on the Patronicity platform. We raised $6,000 through crowdfunding, and then Sustainable CT matched $9,000, which was the kind of increased match that they were running when we kicked the project off. We solicited local organizations, like we got a sizable donation from the Suffield Rotary. We had a booth at the farmers market and got some individual contributors that way. We distributed flyers around town. And then a lot of the members in our Sustainable Suffield group just reached out personally and asked friends and family, excuse me, to contribute as well. If you click over to the next slide, and some other marketing strategies that we had, we kind of paired this with a speaker series that we kicked off. So our group is hoping to do more of these educational speaker series. We had Emma McDonald from DEEP come and talk about recycling and composting to residents. We also had pop-ups on the website. The town did social media posts. And then as part of our crowdfunding campaign, we had a raffle for the at-home composting bins for residents. And if you click over to the next slide, so these are pictures from our kickoff that we had on Monday for the composting or food scrap diversion at the elementary school. And it went really well. It just kind of drummed up a lot of excitement with the kids. So the school is K-2. And I'll let Daniel and Maddie at USA talk a little bit more about their involvement with that. You can click over to the next slide.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Daniel Petricello. I manage the food waste program at USA Waste. And for those of you who aren't familiar with us, we are a local family-owned and family-operated hauler in the state of Connecticut. And over the past few months, as Anna mentioned, we've had the privilege of working in partnership with Suffield Sustainability Task Force, the Suffield School staff, and the High School Sustainability Committee to implement an all-encompassing food scraps and recycling program at Spalding Elementary that will eventually be expanded to the rest of the schools in the town, as well as hopefully other towns that are interested in similar programs to this. During that time, so you could switch to the next slide. Thank you. So during that time, we invested a lot of our own resources and time to create a package of kind of deliverable educational videos, posters, stickers, and other materials that can be used at Spalding, as well as many other schools that are interested in this program. One of the things that kind of separates us from other haulers is that we're able to provide these food scrap services on top of our regular trash and recycling services, So when we're teaching the kids and talking about the program and the step-by-step process, we could kind of break it down for them from food scrap recycling, regular recycling, and trash, all with one program, which is great. We're really excited about this because when other towns fundraise and receive this similar match funding program from Sustainable CT, we have all the educational resources and tools developed now to give those other towns everything that they need to be successful and effectively recreate the program that we created in Suffield. And there are a lot of other towns that are already very interested in this program and kind of are starting to have conversations with us to develop their own. So we're eager to work with other towns. We're happy to work with Suffield, and we're really happy with how the launch event went overall with the kids. They were really excited about it. And I'll turn it over to Maddie now, and she could speak a little bit more about kind of the launch day and just the program in general.
Thanks, Daniel. My name is Maddie Hart. I'm the outreach specialist at USA Waste and Recycling. I'm really excited to be talking to you guys today. Torin, if you would switch over to the next slide for me. Thanks so much. So part of our unique approach to the food scraps reclamation is we provide a personalized experience for all of the towns that we work with. We understand that there's staffing constraints, logistical constraints, and we want to make sure that that's taken into account. We have the industry expertise. We've been hauling food scraps for over 25 years commercially. We understand how it can work effectively, and we're willing to put in the time and make sure that that program works specifically for your program itself. We understand that there's no cookie cutter way to approach this. Every school, every program has different means of disposing of materials, and we want to make sure that we take all of those considerations into account. We also want to make sure that we continue to provide technical assistance and keep an open line of communication between us and our partners, because we understand that this is a very, very new realm for a lot of us, and we want to make sure that we continue to improve and work on the systems that we have in place and provide the best experience possible. Lauren, if you want to switch to the next slide for me. Thanks. I just wanted to include our contact information. If you're from any municipality or even any organization that you're considering implementing food scraps reclamation, you can take a screenshot of the chat or of the slide, and I'll also put our information in the chat. And we would really love to hear from you and hear about how we can give you a customized program for your application. Thank you.
There were a couple more slides on my end, but if we're short on time, that's totally fine. I just wanted to share that we did like a bulk purchase for the at-home bins. So the information is on the slides that I shared with everyone at the top of the chat. If anyone is interested in where we purchased those bins from, that was one thing that was kind of tricky to figure out. And then one way that we're going to try to measure, it's hard to measure impact when we're giving bins, because obviously that's just the first step is people receiving the bins from the town, but we want to make sure that they're actually being used effectively to divert food waste. So we're going to try to reach out via emails and possibly plan some more workshops specifically for composting and include people that received bins in those workshops so that hopefully they get used effectively. And I think that was it. The next slide just has some ideas of ways that we might expand this in the future. So definitely expanding it to the other schools, possibly having a community drop-off location for food scraps for people that don't or can't compost at home. But continuing to explore curbside pickup. We found that just was the highest price point of all the options that we had. So we kind of started small, and then potentially also looking into food rescue initiatives to prevent food waste. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. That was an awesome presentation about an awesome project that we are so happy to be able to support. And we are getting lots of good questions in the chat, and we are going to save questions towards the end. If any project leaders want to answer the questions in the chat, feel free to, but we will have some time at the end for Q&A. And also we will be sharing out all the slides and the recording of this after the fact, so nobody needs to rush to screenshot anything. Just as an FYI. So next we will be having Deb from New Haven come and talk about their composting initiative in New Haven through the Common Ground.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm on my phone, so it's a little awkward. And I was supposed to be presenting with a student, Clouds, but I think maybe she got caught up in class. So I will do my best to keep things interesting. My name is Deborah Gregg. I'm the farm director at Common Ground. My pronouns are she, her. And if none of you have been to Common Ground, I'm not sure who has, but you should put it on your list. It's a really special place in New Haven, Connecticut. We have a charter high school, an environmental nonprofit, and we also have an urban farm, which has sort of spurred a lot of our work around community composting initiatives. We can go to the next slide. Oh, and the next one, thank you. So Common Ground, the farm itself is about a ½ acre. We do diverse vegetable and we have animals and do a lot of education work in addition to access to food. But the thing that this particular project is focused on is our composting system. So we were able to build a static aerated pile composting system in 2017. So it's kind of turned from airflow below and it's contained in vessels. You can see a bay here where our students are working. It's one of the only community scale composting systems that is operating in New Haven, Connecticut. This year, we've diverted over 40,000 tons of food waste, and that's not counting the animal manure and leaf and wood chip waste that we're also processing. It's about 1 ton a week of food that we take in, and Clouds had really wanted to emphasize that that's about the weight of a car every single week. So it gives you a bit of a visual on what we're doing on our small site. We get food waste from sort of pay what you can drop off. We have bins that are accessible 24 hours a day. We work with Peels and Wheels, which is a company that does local bike pickup of food waste in New Haven in some neighborhoods. And in 2022, they lost their site where they did processing. So we're taking in a lot more waste from the community through them and our partnership with them. And then we process waste from our own cafeteria and farm. And obviously, the reason we're doing this is to support our farm. We need the compost to grow food. We grow food organically, but we're also pretty committed to supporting, fellow urbanites in Bridgeport and Hartford, where New Haven's food gets diverted and incinerated. So if we can reduce that, it's a small way that I think an individual can make a big difference in our environment. So we can go to the next slide. So this project on our sustainable CT campaign was around sustaining and expanding the work we're doing. We want to design and implement educational field trips for New Haven Public Schools. We already have about 6,000 New Haven Public School students come through our site annually to see the farm and feel that, learning about compost is a way for those students to kind of connect to their own power and to the world around them. We also want to be able to become a resource. So by sort of refining the way we're processing, purchasing the sort of supplies we need and figuring out our recipes, we can be a better resource for other folks in New Haven and around the state who are working on this, and advocate for citywide resources going towards municipal composting, which doesn't exist right now. We are also committed through this program to expanding equitable access. So part of what we're fundraising for is, I think what the previous books were talking about, but, getting, buckets and bins into the hands of the general public. We have a mobile market that we're piloting as a drop-off site for food waste. It goes around about 11 different neighborhoods in New Haven. And we also are committed to offering pay what you can services so that everyone has access to drop-off. And then the hugest part or biggest part of what we do, which I think a lot of people have experienced, is making sure that our staff and our youth job training program is funded and paid. This work is really hard, and we want to train leaders in this field, and we literally could not do it without them. So we can go to the next slide for that. So a lot of what we're fundraising for is our Green Job Corps crew, which is a crew of paid high school students from Common Ground. It started last fall and with about 4 students, and they come out weekly to help us process. We believe it's really crucial to pay these students for this work opposed to just having them volunteer, because it's incredibly physically demanding and frankly really disgusting. What we've recognized is that through our existing Green Job program, which has been a model that's been running for many, many years now at Common Ground, we have sort of like rounds of employment. So there's like fall employment, spring employment, and 6 weeks during the summer. But obviously food waste doesn't disappear in, the 8-week gap between when the summer program ends and school year starts. So as recognizing that this is year-round work, we're trying to fill in the gaps with labor, with young people who are excited to be leaders in this field. And I think what we've recognized is that the students we work with just have this incredible passion. Our fall program ended, that was like our first time trying this work, and the students came every week and helped us process, a car worth of food every week. And when the funding ended, they kept showing up because they were committed to this space for a variety of reasons that I'll talk about in a second. So we've recognized that we just need more consistent funding for young people doing this work. We can go to the next slide just to see the picture, and then we can go. So this is our current crew, and then thanks. And we can go to the next one. So when I was talking to Clouds yesterday about why she does this work, I think when a lot of folks have started, it's like, well, I like doing this, and I also like getting paid, or, it's something to do after school. But what I've realized talking to these young people is that they just have this incredible passion, and I think they enjoy the problem solving. Clouds was talking to me about, her taking sort of power, recognizing that there was a lot of contamination from the cafeteria, and, standing next to the bins to make sure that the education piece was happening. I think for Ellen and Fernando and Clouds, you can see Ellen and Fernando here, it's become a really great source of self-esteem and mental health benefits for them. I know Ellen comes and will sit on top of the compost pile and meditate when she's feeling dysregulated during the school day. I also know that Fernando, who's incredibly germophobic, which is why we wanted to show this photo, grew exponentially. He's standing on top of a pile of food waste that's been sort of fermenting for a week. And I think they also have recognized that they've become real role models for their peers. When classes or field trips come out, we often call on them to help train and support other young people, because they've recognized in themselves that they will be leaving in a couple years, and there needs to be a next generation that's doing this work. So I think in terms of the fundraiser, we can skip forward a couple slides. There's slide number 10, I think, is a fun one. We have not met our goal. We are working on it. We have one more week. We have so many people who are excited about this and have donated. We can go a couple more slides, sorry, to the pumpkin smash. But one thing we've decided, and we were going to do this anyway, was to kind of galvanize energy from our community, was to have a pumpkin smash, and then we'd compost the pumpkins and get people engaged in the campaign. And it helped us exceed our goal of number of donors, and I think really expanded people's awareness of what we're doing. We've had a lot more drop-offs since then, but we're still working on the financial piece. So hopefully we'll make our match and we'll be able to employ these young people and keep doing this great work. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Deb. This is such an awesome project, and I put a link in the chat for anybody who wants to visit and support Deb's page. They are very close to being able to meeting their crowdfunding goal, and I also included some other links to Anna Kristen's page. That one is completed, but if you want to read some more about it, learn some more, feel free to. And now I'm going to pass it over to Torin to introduce Marc. And I just want to say thank you one more time to our Community Match Fund project leaders for coming today, sharing their stories about their projects, and for all the awesome stuff you do in your communities.
Cannot agree more, Inez. The Community Match Fund is a great outlet for people that want to feel empowered that they can solve a problem in their community, and you should use the Match Fund as such. A special guest and a special thanks to Inez for being a great co-host today. Without further ado, I want to kick it off to one of our other special guests, Marc Morgan, who is the Strategic Account Manager for Municipal Services at Casella Waste. And he will be here today to teach you about all the things related to municipal recycling contamination. So without further ado, Marc, I'm going to be quiet so you can take over.
Thanks, Torin. I apologize for being late. I'm glad I checked my emails because I had this down at 11. So I would have been tuning in when all of you were tuning out. So I apologize for my tardiness. And I'm going low tech today. So I don't have a presentation. I just wanted to really have a conversation with folks. I figured this was a coffee hour. So I'm going to, I've actually just finished my coffee. But just wanted to talk about contamination. And for all of those managing municipal programs, this is a regular discussion that, you know, if you're moving your material into a processing facility, this is an ongoing conversation with your processor. And I boiled it down to really 3 elements. And the first element is, what's the big deal? The second one is, what's included in contamination? What are we talking about? Because that's not always, I hate to say defined, but it's frankly not defined. And then the third element is, how do we improve or reduce our contamination? What are some steps that can be taken? So that's the framework I'm presenting this morning. So what is the big deal? I've been in the recycling industry for 3 decades now. And there was a time when there was, for those who have been in the industry this long, might remember this shift to a sorting recycling stream to the single stream method of recycling, where we were sending more material to processors. And there was a time when people were confused about, do I recycle my number 5 plastic, or do I keep the cap on? Do I have to take the plastic film out of the envelope? You know, there are all these questions about what I need to do to prepare my recyclables for processing. And what was happening was, the answer that was given was, if you're not sure, just throw it in the bin and we'll figure it out for you. And that was a fairly effective marketing campaign to improve the amount of recyclables that people were putting in their bin. So much so, it continues to this day. And people just assume that, well, I'm not sure if this is recyclable. I think it might be. So out of the goodness of whatever, you know, I'm going to just put this in the bin because I'm uncertain. There's some unintended consequences as a result of contamination that I just think it's important that we highlight. And I try to highlight this as often as possible. And I would encourage everybody to share these concepts that contaminated recycling has what I would identify as three major impacts. The first one is environmental. When we do what we commonly refer to as wish cycling, that method of recycling whereby I wish or I hope this is recyclable, so I'm putting it in there. Some unintended consequences can happen. If you're putting the wrong thing in, that wrong thing could actually affect the recyclability of other recyclables. So your hope can make it worse for other good recycling opportunities that end up becoming contaminated as a result. And it might be, throwing what are referred to as tanglers, cables or hoses, things like that in the mix that end up shutting down the plant. And then all the recyclables that could be around that are then we're just cleaning it out, trying to get to what's causing the jam in the system. And as a result, that good recycling is now contaminated and is resulting in disposal. So wish cycling is not just a bad idea because it's not recyclable. It can impact other recycling. So that's, there's that environmental aspect to it because you're negatively affecting recycling. There's a financial impact. Processing facilities in many cases have a sliding scale when paying for your recycling. And it's based on a contamination rate. If your material is very contaminated, there's a lot of labor that goes into it, to the processing to clean that material up. And as a result, you pay a higher price for that recycling. We do audits on loads as they come in on a regular basis. So we can let the customer know, hey, the material you're delivering us is really contaminated. You're in danger of having an increased rate for your recyclables. And many people are, the cost for recycling people talk about, and this is another unfortunate part of history, is the general public has enjoyed this view of free recycling for decades. Recycling has never been free. There's always people who work to process that material. There's trucks that haul it. There's an inherent cost to recycling. It's just been subsidized generally by the municipality or the value of the material that's coming out. So this is another shift in this concept that when people see what I'm paying $100 a ton for recycling, this used to be a free service. Well, it was never really free. It's just the economics of that system has changed dramatically. So there's a financial impact to recycling contamination. The last one that I have that I don't feel like we talk enough about is the safety impacts associated with recycling contamination. I mentioned at the beginning about something called tanglers, where hoses get wrapped up in shafts in the sorting equipment. That does happen regularly. It's not just hoses, it's also bags. So when your processor says, do not bag your recyclables, it's a safety issue. The system was never designed to process film plastic. And as a result, those bags can get wrapped around shafts and make the sort less effective. So in the beginning, there's the first pass of the sort is generally separating containers and fiber like paper and cardboard. As the shafts that do that sorting get plugged up with bags, it's less effective and we get contaminated recycling further down the line. So the system has to get shut down. Staff actually goes into the equipment, which is confined space, and has to remove those bags. And it's a dangerous workspace because it's confined and it's time consuming, and that adds to the cost. It goes back to financial and has an impact on the recyclability of other items. So there's just this massive blending of impacts. So again, just to recap, this concept of, well, I'm not sure if this is recyclable, but we should never just say to people, well, just throw it in there and they'll figure it out. That should never be our answer. What we should be doing is educating ourselves about what is okay and what's not. The general sorting requirements at processing facilities are really, containers, jugs, cans, bottles, paper and cardboard. Items like grocery bags and film plastic, yes, they're recyclable, but not in your cart or bin. That's not where they go. Styrofoam, yeah, that's a recyclable material. Does that go in your bin? No, it does not. We're talking about commingled recyclables, kind of the traditional, typical materials that we've talked about. Yes, Lynn, if in doubt, leave it out. Or I always say, if in doubt, throw it out. And ask questions, absolutely ask questions. So what is contamination? I've mentioned things like grocery bags and hoses, a category I would refer to as non-recyclables. So that category can be pretty broad. Things like black plastic or just plastic trays. Plastic is a big issue and a major contributor to recycling contamination. Just there's a lot of confusion about plastics. I will say we spend an inordinate amount of time talking about plastics, but there's so much more paper that's in the waste stream that we're missing. That is just, we're not even talking about long-term recyclability of products and very stable markets like cardboard and paper. That is still being thrown out, and we're missing that in a lot of cases. But we're so focused in on, what about my black plastic? That's a fraction of what's being disposed of. I'm not saying it's a non-issue, but I don't hear a lot of people talking about capturing the remaining paper or cardboard that is easily recyclable all day long. So contamination represents non-recyclable items, and understanding what your processor accepts is critical. So knowing what is and isn't recyclable is important. So please reach out to your processor for that list. The other item that's considered contamination, and this seems like an obvious answer, or an obvious should not be in the recycling stream, is trash. Literally bags of trash, human diapers, turkey carcasses, things that are leaf and yard waste. Things that are so clearly not recyclables, and yet for some reason make their way into the recycling stream. I personally believe that the reason these items are in the recycling stream are really surround one element, and that is a level of service. If you have a 2-cart system where you've got a 65-gallon cart for garbage and a 96-gallon cart for recyclables, and you fill your 65 of trash, hey, I've got more room over here and I've got 2 more bags. Guess where those are going? They're going in the recycling bin. And it's not, in that case, I don't feel like it's lack of education about what is recyclable. I think it's people don't realize what happens to those recyclables and the impact of doing it wrong has. So not only is it important to let people know what can go in that bin, it is so critical to let them know these items do not go in the bin. This time of year, we see a lot of leaf and yard waste in the recycling bins and in the trash bins. Connecticut has a ban on the disposal of that material. We should have programs as a municipality to properly manage those items, or encourage people to just put it in your backyard, compost it, mulch your leaves in place. There's a variety of options, but for some reason, people they want to get rid of them. And when they don't have other options, they're going to make their way into improper channels. The last thing that I have for contaminate, the last category, so I have non-recyclables, trash. The third category is one that people rarely think of, and it's moisture. And moisture comes from a variety of sources and can really jam up good recycling. It starts with things like half full coffee cups or soda bottles or water bottles. We drink it and oh, I'm done with this. Put the cap on. I don't want this to spill. So you throw it in the recycling bin and you feel good because you've recycled. But when that bottle gets in the system and is processed, sometimes it's under pressure in a truck and can spray out. And as a result, things like newspaper and cardboard get wet. And when it's wet, it's not recyclable. So you're recycling correctly, it's a bottle, but the contents should be empty. So, you know, beverage containers are a problem. Coffee cups are not recyclable. So when they're placed in the container and have things in, it's not only a non-recyclable, but it contains moisture. The other one that I see regularly when I'm out driving around meeting with towns is carts with lids that are wide open. And I know some will say, well, when the truck empties it, the lid isn't closed. Well, when we drag our cart back up to the house, we should close that lid. Keeping the lid open allows rain or snow to get in that cart. And what started out as hopefully good recycling is now not good recycling. And again, when that gets in the truck, it can contaminate further good recycling as a result. So non-recyclables, trash, and moisture are the three biggies, and there are subcategories for all of those. Lastly, how do we improve this? Very often what we focus on is, well, I'm gonna send a flyer out. I've got this wonderful brochure that shows what is and isn't recyclable. So we mail those out, but not everybody reads these. You know, they get this in the mail and they chuck it, hopefully in their recycling bin. But sometimes people will post it on their refrigerator. So traditional outreach, although is not always fantastic and is never the silver bullet, needs to be part of that toolbox. Now, you need to address it in a variety of locations. A mailer is a good one-time thing, but it's important to do other forms of outreach, you know, stuff online, websites and things of that nature. But also we have an app. I know the state of Connecticut has an app where you can search to find out what is or is not acceptable for recycling. We do things here at Casella. I mentioned audits. We do curbside audits to investigate specific cart problems that may arise. So typical outreach is critical. Other things that are happening is technology like AI. We hear a lot about AI. There's a company called Prairie Robotics that's using AI in the truck to identify contamination by address. So when the cart is tipped, takes a picture of the contamination, then can actually send a letter to the address identifying the contaminant. So that's great, but again, that's on the back end. It would be great if that was never put in that truck because the truck is still contaminated. We've just let the person know that they shouldn't do that. Recently, Casella has upgraded their Charlestown MRF up in Boston, and we've used several forms of technological tools to improve and reduce contamination. We're doing more on pulling material out using robotics and AI. The last form of technology that's out there is kind of mechanical. So the MRFs, or the material recovery facilities, install a lot of expensive equipment to pull out what is not supposed to be there in the first place. And that's done either manually with literally hands. We have two people on the front end of our sort line here in Willimantic that their job is literally to just pull the wrong stuff off right on the front end of that. And you would be shocked at the number of bags of garbage that come in that are pulled out. And so some people think, well, I'm going to bag my recyclables. That'll be much more convenient. I'll put that in the cart. Please stop doing that. Bagged recyclables, there is so much material coming into these processing plants that very often, if it's bagged, it's assumed it's trash, because very often it is. But if you're bagging your recyclables, it may also be confused with trash. So that's going to get missed. But so traditional outreach is really important. And I hear a lot of municipalities have contracts with vendors like Casella or some other waste company, and they rely on the contractor almost 100% to do all the outreach. I think it's really important to partner with your vendor. We've partnered with several of our communities. A recent effort we're doing in the town of Mansfield We're doing some major outreach in that community on a variety of levels, doing presentations and workshops. We have an app. We're doing stuff online. We're just doing several things. I do a monthly radio show here in Willimantic focused on waste. So there's a lot of different ways to get topics out there. And it's critical that you partner with your contractor or whoever it is that you're working with to help reduce contamination, because we all want to do the right thing. We're not always sure how to do that. And it's just important to ask those questions about getting there to the right place. So I was quick in hopes that we'll have time for more questions and conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. This is great. It's great information's been great, as well as the how-tos and some strategies to help municipalities potentially prevent contamination from entering the municipal waste stream. We've had wonderful guests with 3 different opportunities and 3 different speaking points. I would love to open the room for any kind of questions. I know some questions were in chat, so I don't know, Inez or folks that are maybe monitoring, if we want to go back to those. But anyone, please feel free to take yourselves off mute if you're inclined to ask any questions.
Yeah, so we could start with some in the chat. So one that I saw from Jim was for Anna. So Jim was wondering if the town of Suffield let your committee use the match funding because their town wouldn't let the sustainable committee participate. So maybe you could talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not sure why your town didn't let you do that, but no. So Sustainable Suffield is a group of volunteers, and we serve on a task force that was created by the town, and there was no question or issue about letting us do a match funding campaign. We actually, as a committee, we have some funds that we get through the NIPS, the bottle money, and we were able to contribute some of that as kind of the town committing to the project as well as part of the crowdfunding.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Anna. I have a question from, Jim, you came off mute. Did you want to follow up?
Well, I just wanted to thank her that I wasn't part of the sustainable committee. I'm part of the recycling committee, and we're looking to raise some funds. So knowing that a town did that, I can pursue ours at our end. Thank you for the information.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Jim. I have a question here from Sabina. Anna, did you have any issues or with bears that were potentially attacking any of your composting infrastructure?
So the bins have actually just started going out to residents. We haven't had anyone report back, but when we did our very initial survey, a lot of people had concerns about bears and had kind of said that they wouldn't want to compost at home because bears. I mean, just based on how quickly the bins were distributed, I think there are enough people that aren't very concerned about it. There are a lot of guides and there's information out there that we plan to share with bin recipients on how you can reduce the attractiveness of your compost bin to bears, mixing the brown with the green, keeping the smell down. I think bears really love trash cans because they get really smell. That's anaerobic in there in the trash bags. So I think just educating people that are interested in composting at home about how to properly manage their composts will be key as a follow-up to distributing the bins.
Thank you, Anna. Let's see, going through.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is my name is Hedley Freak. I live in Willimantic, and I'd like to ask Mark. I'd like to put the two halves. We had 2 sets of presentations together, and what plans does Casella have to help towns facilitate food waste collection and composting?
So we're launching pretty unique program in Mansfield next month. It's an in-home small appliance called Food Cycler. So we're recognizing that there's some serious challenges with food waste collection, and really it's distance to end sites. So it gets really expensive hauling food waste around because there's so much water in there. So what we've identified is an opportunity to manage food waste at home. So that's how we're looking at it on this side of the state. We do food waste collection at larger institutions because you're getting large volumes, so you can get some collection efficiencies. The curbside collection can be challenging, especially here on the eastern part of the state.
Thanks, Mark. One more question for Anna that I see in the chat. Lisa was wondering if you guys charged anything for the compost bins during the pilot to your citizens.
So we did not. We talked a lot about that. We really just wanted it to be accessible for anyone that was interested in having one. We do already have a wait list going though, so we're considering that if we use any of the funds that our group has to do another bulk order and get bins at a reduced rate that way, that we might charge a small fee. We're still kind of thinking about that and the pros and cons of doing that.
Thank you. Anybody? Oh, it looks like Lynn has a question.
Hi, I just wanted to kind of add to the conversation about the many ways of dealing with food waste. So yes, haulers and collection, very convenient for residents. As Mark says, expensive if the stuff has to be hauled very far across the state. And, you know, it's also fossil fuels as you're driving these things around. So on a really small scale, the Common Ground example we heard about is a great solution, and we have similar community match fund projects in Falls Village and Hartford where community gardens are taking in compost from surrounding residents. Yeah, it means you have to drive, you know, to that place to drop off your food waste, but it's a hyper local solution and another great example and something we're eager to support. So we'd be happy to provide, you know, other examples of some of the towns doing this stuff. Maybe we'll put them in the follow-up email so you can see what Falls Village and Hartford are doing. But yeah, I mean, this stuff can be used as soil. So if you're bringing it directly to a place that's growing food, that's an amazing solution too.
Thanks, Lynn. As we are approaching the 11 o'clock hour, does anybody else have any final questions or remarks for any of our guests today? All right, I'm going to take that radio silence as no, but we will be sending a follow-up email with everyone's contact info. If you'd like to drop any of our special guests a question or just a line to chat, I'd highly encourage that. Otherwise, yes, we'll be sending out a link for today's recording with all of the presentations as well as some of the resources that were shared out amongst our staff as well. And with this, I just want to wish you all a happy belated National Recycling Day, as National Recycling Day was November 15th. It looks like I do have a question in chat from Heather. Heather, please feel free to add whatever please feel free to come off mute and ask or say whatever you need to.
It took me a second to get my electronic hand up. I still have that question from decades ago or whatever. Do we need to remove lids from plastic, say milk cartons? And I assume that we do need to take the plastic film out of envelopes.
I'm assuming that question is for me. So
yeah,
no, you don't need to take the windows out of your envelopes anymore. The paper recycling process removes things like staples and paper clips. I mean, obviously, the cleaner it can be, the better. And then, I'm sorry, what was your first question?
Lids from, say, milk jugs?
Okay, so this is an ongoing question. I think Coca-Cola says put the cap back on. Others say take it off. I would ask your processor what they prefer. For me, it seems like right now those are two different types of plastic. So I always take the lid off because it's a different type of plastic. And just so everybody knows as well, size for recycling does matter. Anything smaller than a Lego man, regardless of what it is not going to be recyclable. And I say Lego man because we all kind of know what that looks like. So if you're taking your caps off of your bottles and throwing it in your recycling bin, those are getting processed out because they're smaller than the size of a typical screen. So they end up in the glass or in the kind of the off-spec material that ends up being disposed of anyway. So it ends up being an expensive and costly way to dispose of something anyway. So if you have items that, you know, like eyedrop containers or something that's really small, those are not recyclable as well. So I hope that helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. All right, I think that was our last question. I think I'm going to call it with a minute left to spare. Thank you guys for attending today. We really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to seeing you guys at our next coffee hour, which I think will be sometime in December. With that being said, please feel free to look in your inbox for that follow-up email with all the resources that were shared and discussed and talked about today. And we wish you a happy holidays and looking forward to seeing you in December. Take care, folks.
Thank you, everyone.